So back in my index.js file, I'm going to get rid of my only line of code that says alert. Hey, I'm just going to get rid of it, just like this. Now, I have a blank JavaScript file to write on, but let's go through a few of the quirks of JavaScript really quickly, and then we'll start to just write some code. Now, I'm just going to throw a lot of things down here. I'm not going to exactly explain what all of them do, necessarily, or why they do what they do. I'm just going to show you what happens when we write the code we write. Then, later on, we're going to go back and go over each of these things one by one. Is that cool with everybody?
Sure.
Cool. In JavaScript, the first thing I'm going to teach you how to do is write comments. Now, comments in JavaScript are just like comments in every other language. They don't actually get run as code by your interpreter. So I can type out a comment in JavaScript. The way I type them out usually is with 2 slashes, just like this. And then I can leave little notes to myself like, today, we're going to learn JavaScript. Okay? Then I'm going to make a few spaces and make another comment. We're going to learn, or we'll look at, functions or variables, functions, and data types. I'm going to make this on another line. And notice how when I break the line, the comment no longer continues and I get an error. So just make sure that every single line has those two that you want to be a comment, has those 2 little slashes in front of it. Okay? So we'll look at variables, functions, and data types. Just to give you a quick little overview, data types are different types of data, such as numbers. Some people call them, integers, floats, but in JavaScript we'll just go with numbers, strings, booleans. Things like that are data types. Variables are like containers that can hold different values, such as data or functions. And last but not least, a function. You can kind of think of, for now, just think of a function as something that does something. Yeah, that's super vague, I get it. Functions are sort of like actions. Think about it like that. When you write a function, something happens. Something is going to occur. So, functions make something happen. And really, that's all you need to know before we get into this little lesson. Now, I'm going to write up a bunch of code from P5, and we're going to talk about it as I go through it. You ready? The first thing we're going to do is we're going to write out our first function. The way you create functions in JavaScript is just by writing out the word function, all lowercase. And then after that, you give that function a name. In this case, I'm going to name this function setup, just like this. Now, after the name of your function, you always have to include an opening parentheses and a closing parentheses, just like this. And you should also include, after that, an opening squiggly and a closing squiggly. And that right there is a complete function. So then right below that, I'm going to make a little bit of space, and I'm going to write a function called draw. That's going to look exactly the same. So I've made 2 functions here. I made a function called setup and a function called draw. And you can see that both of these functions have the same style of writing. The function is blue, it's highlighted, it's italic, the word function. That's because function is a key word. Whenever you see the word function, it means something very specific and it can't mean anything else. So they let you know that it's a key word. It's some nice little syntax highlighting that Cloud9 does for you. Then we have the name of our functions. Functions can have different names, and they should have different names. One function is called setup, and another function is called draw. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to write some code inside the setup function. And we're going to create our very first variable. To create a variable, you start with the keyword var. And you see that it's highlighted blue and italicized just like the keyword function was. Then you give that variable a name. In this case, we're going to call it canvas. The way you store something inside a variable is by using the equal sign, the assignment operator, the equal sign right there. And we're going to say inside this variable of canvas, we're actually going to store another function. We're going to call it create, capital C, canvas, 800, 400. Now I'm going to stop for a second because I just did some stuff that we haven't seen before. I created a variable called canvas, and then I used the equal sign to assign the result of another function to the variable canvas. If you've never seen programming before, this might look super confusing. If you've programmed another language, this might be a little confusing also. Don't worry too much. Technically, functions are first, well, we'll talk about this later on. Don't worry about it too much. Just know that for now, we're taking a variable called canvas and we're storing a function called create canvas inside that variable canvas. We're then inside of our function, we see our first example of parameters. So this is a variable canvas storing function create canvas function. And that function takes in two parameters. These numbers right here, 800 and 400, when they're inside the parentheses, we call them parameters. And you separate every parameter with a comma, just like this. These are your first example of your first data type. Can anyone guess what data type this is? Yeah, it's a number. 800 is a number, exactly. This is your first data type, known as a number. Now below that, we're going to do something else that's a little funky. We're going to say canvas, the name of my variable, dot parent, and then we're going to do open, close, parentheses, and write in the string jumbo canvas. This is your next data type. This data type is called a string. So here's our two data types so far. The data type of numbers and a data type of string. Now, can anyone guess why I called this jumbo canvas here? That's right, it's the ID of the Jumbotron container that I gave in my HTML. There's a good reason we're doing that, and we'll see it right away as we write into our next function. Once you have this, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to go inside the draw function, and you're going to type out the word background, open parentheses, close parentheses, and just throw in, let's go with 0. 9, 0. Okay? Just like this. Now, if you save and refresh this page, you should immediately see a black box appear inside your Jumbotron. If you do, you did it right. If you didn't, you might have messed something up. You might have misspelled create canvas. You spell it exactly like I did right here. So be very careful. I want everyone to look at their partner's display right here, their little preview, and make sure they have a black box appearing once they've saved both files and refreshed the preview. Everyone go ahead and do that right now, and we'll come back in a second. So now, we have a canvas ready to draw on. This is looking okay, but I'm going to stop this video here, paste this code into Slack, and we're going to start drawing on it in the next video. So, if you have any questions, let me know. But for now, I'm going to end this video here.